Well, hello. This is Jeff Gaudiosi, and you're on misplacedstraws.com, where music comes to life. And my guest today is really one of the reasons why I do what I do. I was 14, I was at my second concert ever, and I saw him walk out on stage with David Lee Roth at the Eat 'em and Smile tour, and the world was never the same after. He's now about to release his 10th solo record called Inviolate, and I am honored to have him here to talk to me about it. Please welcome the legendary Steve Vai. Welcome, Steve.
Nice to be here, Jeff. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Now, before we get into the record, you've had some physical issues and some surgeries over the past year or so in your shoulder and your hands.
Yeah.
Everything doing okay now? You doing well?
Well, it's funny. I'm a very healthy guy, I
Mhm.
believe, and through the years, I've luckily suffered little challenges physically, except I think growing up, hunched over a guitar. You know, when I was in Dave's band, I had two spine surgeries in my neck
Oh,
and lower
wow.
back, and they
Mm,
they worked excellently. I
mm,
never had a problem. And I think when I was working out, and
mm.
you do these fuck, you do chest flies,
Yeah.
and I wasn't listening to my body, and I tore these ligaments. There was three of them, and I had them fixed last
Mhm.
year, and they were great, but I happened to tear another one, so I'm kind of taking it one step at a time here.
Yeah.
But it's all right, these things happen to all of us. Well, not
Exactly.
all of us, but a lot of us.
Yeah. So now, Inviolate, it's had a pretty unique
And
journey.
violent.
In Violet,
Thank you.
it's a pretty unique journey through the pandemic. The original idea was an acoustic record with vocals, and this is certainly not that. I mean, it's gloriously loud. It begs to be played live. How did you sort of change directions as you were putting it together?
Well, you just said it. It begs to be played live.
Mm,
A lot of times, when I make records, when I compose or make songs,
mm,
they're not so practical to play live,
mm,
because they're kind of dense and overproduced, perhaps.
mm,
But to reproduce them live is difficult. And before the pandemic, my uh, what I was going to do was work on a record that was going to be the third installment of the Real Illusions
mm,
trilogy, which is sort of this series of records that are creating a story. But that was going to be a big project, very dense, a lot of vocals
mm,
and this kind of thing. And then the pandemic hit, and I really couldn't. Musicians had to kind of figure out different ways to navigate,
mm.
and a lot of good things came out of it because people were, I mean, like our Zoom meeting right
Yeah,
now, you know,
exactly. Mm,
everybody's Zooming
yeah.
and trading files online,
Mm,
and I don't really think that was going to work for that record.
mm,
So I kind of shelved it and started just fooling around with the time that was available to us,
mm.
during the lockdown. And it really was nice because it gave me an opportunity to do some things I, I wanted to do. I think that was probably the case with a lot of people.
Mm,
One of them was to post these live streams. I had two kinds of
mhm,
series going on. One was called Under It All, and that's where I kind of just answer questions from folks on more esoteric principles. And then there was one, Alien Guitar Secrets,
mm,
and that's where I would take
mm,
questions,
mm,
from people about guitar and music. And that was nice. I really enjoyed that. I think I did about seven of each.
mm,
And then I started posting stuff to. I paid very little attention to social media
mm,
in the past, and I just, I'm an old timer in a sense. I'm
mm,
61, so I, you know, I,
mm.
I like to embrace new technology, but then it was made apparent to me how valuable it is in
Yeah.
reaching the people that are interested in what you're doing.
Mm,
So I gave it some focus, and I got this really great team together. Stephen and Stephanie Bradley just did miraculous things with my social media for me. And one of the things I wanted to do was complete an idea that I had for a song that consisted of a clean guitar tone,
Mhm.
a non-gem, a no whammy bar. I like to set up parameters sometime because it forces they force you to discover things
Right.
that you wouldn't otherwise.
Mhm.
Sort of like the pandemic, you know.
Yeah.
But it was really great because I recorded the song Candle Power,
Mhm.
and it gave me an opportunity to fool around with some techniques I had wanted to.
Mhm.
So I released that, and the response was really good. Uh, and then I did a acoustic. I did a version of a song of mine called "The Moon and I," which is solo acoustic and vocal, which is
Mhm.
very rare for me. I
Right.
don't sing in public
Yeah.
very often. You know what I mean? I like singing, and
Mhm.
I like my voice a lot, but it's extremely limited.
Mhm.
It's not a rock and roll thing, and it has to have the right song.
Right.
You know, and so I did that because it's just something to do that I
Mhm.
wanted to do, and I got a great response. So I thought, hey, you know what? With this lockdown, why don't I make a record of acoustic, solo acoustic, and vocals? Because I have a
Mhm.
ton of songs that fall into that category they don't sound conventional as far as like the chord changes and
Mhm.
stuff like that. Plus, my voice doesn't really sound like um, conventional pop or anything like that, you know.
Yeah.
So I started working on that, and I really was really enjoying it. And then the shoulder thing hit,
Mhm.
and I had to go get the surgery. And then after that, you're recovering. But even then, I was. I always try to see any challenge as something that's in my best
Mhm.
interest. That's a perspective, and it serves a person really well, because when you look at situations that way, and instead of complaining in your head about them or why they should be different or what people should have done or any of that stuff,
Mhm.
you just ask yourself, well, how can this serve me?
Yeah.
How can this serve me? Something in this is for my best interest. I don't know what it is, but I
Mhm.
want to find it. And if that's the perspective, you will find it.
Mhm.
So, there I am. I was wearing this sling that's
Mhm.
called a knapsack that my doctor actually invented, and
Mhm.
his name is Doctor Knapp.
Mhm.
And so I was wearing this knapsack, and I got this new guitar from Ibanez that we were working on for years. It's the
Mhm.
Pia. And it was so beautiful. And there I was with one hand and my other, going,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
want to play this thing. So challenge, challenge. But then, uh, wait a minute, I could play it.
You only need one hand.
If you have like if you have like a legato guitar style,
Mhm.
you can make notes sound. So I thought, I know, I'm gonna make a song that's just one hand.
Yeah.
And I called it Knapsack. And
Mhm.
so I released that, and that people got a kick. My
Mhm.
fans, I should say, got a kick out of it. And when I went to then I at that point I just had to get on tour. It was years. It's years, and I'm
Mhm.
a touring machine. So I had to make a choice quick as to what to do to get on tour, and the Real Illusions trilogy record wasn't going to do it.
Mhm.
I didn't have time, and um, an acoustic record with vocals wasn't. It's
Yeah.
something I would
Mhm.
never tour on.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, you never know, but
Yeah.
just very unlikely.
Mhm.
So I thought, okay, I just want to make a record that's got a handful of what I might consider good songs for me,
Mhm.
and get out there and play my ass off. I want to get on tour. Touring for me is um, such a great
Yeah.
experience. And I didn't think I would miss it so much
Mhm.
because in the past, preparing for a tour can be pretty heavy.
Yeah.
You got to get your fingers in shape. You got to
mm,
take care of all the logistics. You
mm,
have to, plan all the stuff. And you can rehearse, and then you're out there and you're away from home, and all the things that a lot of people can complain about
mm,
touring. Uh, I complained about them in the early part of my career, but then
mm,
I really started to
mm,
enjoy it. And then, but it wasn't until this lockdown where I kind of felt almost like a burning desire
mm.
to get out on tour. So I said, okay, I'm going to finish this record, and I want a record where I can go out and play every
Mm.
song. You know, I
And that's
certainly,
this. That for sure,
yeah.
that's
Well, we'll,
this.
we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Because some of the stuff is death defying for me.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Pia guitar. You also developed the Hydra guitar, which is used on the first track, Teeth of the Hydra. You came up with a couple of new techniques, your joint shifting technique. And as you sort of develop these things, whether it's a new guitar or whether it's a new technique, what's your creative process that says, hey, this is kind of cool, and then eventually turns it into a listenable, fully formed song? How do you get from point A to point B?
Well, the way that we get inspired, the
Mhm,
way that we receive inspiration, it varies. Sometimes it's from things in the outside world, and sometimes we see people doing things that really are cool, and we want to emulate it and add our little touch. You know, elements of what I do contain all of that.
mhm,
But um, usually the good stuff, or at least the good stuff that I'm capable of
mhm,
delivering, my best stuff, comes in the form of what I might call a psychological download.
mhm.
And you know what I'm referring to? It's
Yeah.
when you get it, when an idea hits you, and it's almost complete. It's like a complete idea,
Mhm,
and it's all of the aspects of the a project are contained can be
mhm,
contained in just one download. So I can't force these things.
mhm,
I think people who are like geniuses and stuff are constantly connected to that flow of inspiration. And, you know, uh, guys like me have to wait until the gods of inspiration sprinkle fairy dust. And but when it
mhm,
happens, I capture it
mhm,
somehow. I capture the DNA of it. So, for
mhm.
instance, on this last record, I just explained how Knapsack happened.
Yeah.
The very moment that my hand hit the guitar and my other hand was in the sling, the entire song became clear to me in one
Mhm,
down. Totally, I saw the whole thing. And here's the engine of creation.
mhm,
The engine of creation is your knowing that you can do it.
mhm.
Now, that's not a belief,
Yeah.
you know. To believe that you can do something means, but I really don't know.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
believe, but I don't know.
Yeah. You're
But
not sure.
yeah, but
Mhm,
an inspirational download that a person receives that carries with it a knowing that it's
mhm,
possible. It's tailor made for you.
mhm,
It's like the universe is tailor makes an inspiration for you and downloads it to you. And if you are clear enough, you know, yeah, that's for me. I can do that.
mhm,
Fantasy, on the other hand,
mhm,
has a lot of resistance in it because it's egoic projection
mhm,
into a future where you believe you're going to be considered great or successful or wealthy
mhm,
and find some kind of security in
mhm.
what you're going to do. But those kinds of fantasies never have, they
Mhm.
always have resistance in them
Okay.
somehow.
Mhm,
There's always like, but it might not happen.
mhm.
And then there's fear. So, anyway,
Yeah.
I look for those ideas that tell me, and you can do it too.
Yeah.
You got to put the
Mhm,
screws to it.
mhm,
You got to focus. So, like Knapsack, when the
mhm,
idea came, it was like I didn't pick up the guitar and was able to do it.
mhm,
I was like, I get it. I know where it needs to go.
mhm,
I know what I want. I want a beautiful melody because if there's no melody,
Exactly.
it's a novelty. It's like,
Mhm.
hey, look at the guy playing the guitar
Yeah.
with one hand.
Mm.
And so it has to whatever it is, it has to stand on its own as a piece of
Mm.
music, however tricky or
Mm.
cheeky or weird or
Mm. Mm.
quirky I might
Mm.
execute
Mm.
it. So the same thing happened with Candle Power. Bam,
Mm.
all one download. Saw the whole thing. Didn't know what the notes were
Mm.
gonna be. And the Hydra was like a hernia download. Like when that hit me, I was like, you know, because that's what happens when you know that you can
Yeah.
do it. You get really excited.
Mm.
So
Mm.
so that's kind of what
Yeah.
I look for. I look for, and you can't, the thing is, at least for me, I can't force that stuff. When you try to force
Mhm.
inspiration, it 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 has a distortion in it.
Yeah.
It's not pure, it doesn't fulfill you entirely.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're such a creative person that leads to everything that you could find to do on a guitar. And I mentioned earlier, first time I saw you live, you were with Dave's band. There have been a lot of other bands along the way: Frank Zappa, Alcatrazz, Whitesnake. And in each of those stops, you were able to create your own new music, but you were also sort of, I don't want to use the word burdened with the music that came before you that you also needed to play. Did you ever feel sort of stifled having to play other people's parts when you just have, these creative downloads that you want to go in your direction?
Not when they're Eddie Van Halen's parts.
Kind of saw that coming.
Yeah, I mean, he was a genius at guitar part construction. Every one of those Van Halen songs, joy.
Yeah.
Um, well, okay, so like with Frank Zappa, it's not like you're playing somebody else's music. You're hired to play Frank's music.
Yeah. Mm.
It's somebody else's music,
Yeah.
but I liked it. And Frank, it's not, I wasn't playing somebody else's guitar
Mm.
parts.
Mm.
Frank would compose these obtuse, abstract things for me to play, and
Mm.
it's like it's not somebody else's part.
Yeah.
He wrote it for you. I mean, he wrote it for the song,
Mm.
but he's giving it to you because he believes you can do it.
Mm.
So then with Alcatrazz, there was that was probably the only time where I was thinking, how am I going to navigate this because it's Ingve,
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
know. Try you
Mm.
can't I can't play Ingve
Mm. Yeah.
tracks. Of course I can, and I did, and you just add your own flavor
Mm.
to it. But it would be foolish of me back then to
Mm.
try to emulate him because
Right.
nobody could.
Yeah.
So that was a challenge. I just made it my own. Same thing with Dave, and then with
Mm.
Whitesnake, I wrote all the guitar parts.
Mm.
There was a um, okay. So when I got into Whitesnake, it was the record was done basically.
Mm.
Adrian had laid down sort of guide guitars
Mhm.
because he was suffering with an affliction, which later we found out was actually in his neck, but it compromised his ability to
Mhm.
do the guitars on the
Yeah.
record. So I did those guitars, but I wasn't playing his parts per se.
Mm.
I took his sketches and completely made them my own.
Mm.
So I'm trying to think after that. No, then it was all me.
Yeah.
All my stuff. I don't have a problem with playing anybody's parts. Sometimes they're very helpful,
Mm.
educational for me because I'll engage in doing something that's not quite normal for
Mm.
me. So I'll do that like if I'm going to go do a gig when I'm going to jam with somebody.
Right.
Like when I did the Big Mama Jama Jamathon,
Mhm.
I had like 100 songs,
Mm.
and I'm not like a cover player type of a
Mm.
guy. I'm not the guy at the party that goes, "Oh yeah, this is how that song goes," and
Yeah.
everybody sings along. I'm like, hey, this has no whammy bar. What do you want me to do?
Yeah. How do I
So,
play it? Yeah.
yeah, I can't play this. No. So, sometimes when I have to learn those kinds of songs, they're very helpful,
Mhm.
but there is no way that I would ever make a career out of playing anything but my own
Right.
music now.
Mm. Yeah, and you have a lot of musicians that you use regularly. It's, even on this record, Jeremy Colson's back, Philip Bino. You have your sort of stable of people. Do you ever see yourself putting together a more structured band, like in the Sex and Religion era, or do you like that ability to kind of flow through different people?
I like the ability to flow through different people. I
Mhm.
have no intention of putting a band together
Mhm.
that, you know, conventionally. I've done all that. I've been in
Right. Mhm.
incredibly good bands, and
Mhm.
I'm done.
Mhm.
I want to do what I'm doing. So, um, having said that, it's not impossible that I might take on a project that
Mhm.
requires something like that.
Mhm.
But I'm very fortunate that I'm in a position where I can choose anything. That everybody is in that position, by the way.
Mhm.
You can choose to do whatever you want,
Mhm.
and realizing that is like it's a sense of freedom.
Mhm.
You're not bound to do anything that somebody else is asking you to do, unless you
Mhm.
want to. And so the band that I have has been with me for a long time because they're just bulletproof. They're
Mhm.
fantastic people, which after 41 years of touring, I've discovered that that's of the utmost
Yeah.
importance when you go on tour is that you got
Mhm.
people that are fun. Trust me, it
Yeah.
matters.
Yeah.
When you're out, there's no secrets at sea when you're living on a bus with
Right.
somebody for
Mhm.
13 months. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So I think maybe your question was
Mhm.
for the choices of musicians I have on the record or a band.
Yeah, just
Is that right?
do you like using different musicians on the record as opposed to getting four people and we're going to
Yes.
record the whole thing? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Mhm.
interesting. I've very rarely have taken the route where I'll get into the studio and I'll get the band in the studio and
Mhm.
we play
Yeah.
and play until we get the
Mhm.
right take.
Mhm.
I usually don't do that. I
Mhm.
know what I want, and I layer stuff.
Yeah.
And there's times when people are playing together, obviously. So on this record, I was very fortunate, and even on past records where I could reach out to others that I think would be perhaps more appropriate for a particular part.
Mhm.
Like, for instance, when I recorded Candle Power, it was really a lockdown thing, and I just threw a drum loop on it,
Mhm.
you know. But I didn't want to release it like it was unfinished in a sense.
Yeah.
So I listened to the track, and I'm thinking, who? I mean, Jeremy Colson is the drummer that's been
Mhm.
with me for like 25 years or something, and he's just fantastic at a particular thing,
Mhm.
and he has a very wide breadth of abilities. But when you take someone like Terry Bozzio,
Mhm.
he's a uniquely inspired artist that has a sound, and for that song, that's what it needed.
Yeah.
So I reached out to Terry, and I was fortunate enough that he was into it.
Mhm.
So he did the drums, and I just love what he did. Terry
Mhm.
Bozzio is
It's amazing.
a thoroughly artistic person, man. People don't know.
Mhm.
They think, oh, he's a great drummer. Yeah, but
Mhm.
that guy.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then yeah, and then there was a couple of songs on the record where, okay, Apollo in Color. This is a fusiony, almost
Mhm.
fusiony type of song, very high speed. It requires the kind of sensibilities that throw away the bar line,
Mhm.
you know. And Jeremy is the hardest hitting, most consistently strong in the pocket drummer. I don't think he's dropped a beat in 20 years. I'm serious.
Yeah.
Stunning. But Apollo in Color is just not his
Mm.
gig, you know, and it's just not his juice. It's not his. So you I wanted Vinnie Colaiuta
Yeah.
because I know what the song and I know what Vinny does. I
Mm.
used to transcribe his drum parts, and
Mhm.
I played with him with Frank for years, and I was lucky enough that he accepted it, and he did a couple of songs on the record. So
Mm.
I'll pick, and then like a song like Avalanche, that required a beast of a bass player,
Mm.
you know, someone that is unbridled,
Mm.
you know, and that's Billy Sheehan,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, I was compelled to finish that song simply because the bass part was so cool, you know, and Philip Bino, my
Mm.
bass player, he's like he's my favorite bass player to play with because he has the best ears of any musician,
Mm.
perhaps any musician I've had
Yeah.
in the band, because he has perfect pitch. He is a real bass player in that he listens, and I feel like when I'm playing with him, I feel like no matter where I fall, there's a comfortable bed I'm
Mm.
falling into,
Mm.
you know, and he's got me, you know, Uh, and that's really
Mm.
nice when you're playing, you know. It's always correct.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? It's
Yep.
always
Yep.
my ear goes to Philip and
Mm.
my heart goes wow. And
Yeah.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Mm.
and then there was some other musicians like I usually like to produce, engineer,
Mhm.
record, mix all of my records, and and I do the keyboards too,
Yeah.
unless it requires like any kind of real playing, you know.
Mhm.
Because I don't play, I just
Yeah.
plump, you know. Um, so I'm really lucky that one of my dearest friends is Dave Rosenthal, who
Yeah.
is, you know, just another freakazoid of an
Mhm.
incredible musician, and he's been Billy Joel's musical
Yeah.
director for I think like 25
A
years or
long
something.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, and we met in college, and
Mm.
we've had a band together.
Mm.
So I was fortunate that you know, and I was in the pinch, so I
Mm.
would just I sent a bunch of tracks to Dave, and I said. What do whatever you can, you know, whatever you want, and
Mm.
which is rare, really rare for me because I'm in there going, no, not that note, no, not that note, not that patch, this
Yeah.
patch, you know.
Mm.
I mean, that's one of the hardest things for me when I'm recording a record is I spend days trying to find patches and
Mm.
stuff, you know. And
Mm.
so with Dave, I just don't have to worry.
Yeah.
It's all done. It's done right, and it's done
Mm.
so much better than I could do.
Mm.
And then Dave Weiner, who's
Mm.
the other guitar player in my band,
Mm.
he's about as consistent as anybody I know. He has incredible retention for parts,
Mm.
a great ear, and another guy that listens, and he's a happy camper,
Mm. Mm.
you know. And you know, on this record, I sent a track out to him to lay a rhythm down,
Mm.
and I said, just do whatever you want. Let me just hear what you got. So the lockdown for me as a musician helped me to venture into territories that were usually outside of my comfort
Yeah.
zone, like sending out you know, sending out tracks and going, I don't know what you're going to do, but just do
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
I never do
Yeah.
that, you know. And
It's
it worked out
always
great.
something new. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we've been spending some time here with just the amazing Steve Vai. The record is Inviolate. The massive tour begins in January, runs pretty much through the first part of the year, takes you all over the country. I'm out here on the East Coast. We'll see you in March, I believe. You'll be hitting the Connecticut, New York area. And Steve, just I cannot thank you enough for taking some time to do this. I have a million more questions, so we'll definitely have to do this again sometime. And just
I
thank
know.
you
I'm
so
sorry. I have a
much.
tendency to talk a lot.
No, hey,
Yeah.
it's fascinating. So,
Well, thank you.
um,
I'm sorry you didn't get to all your questions,
oh,
but
please, we could have had an hour and a half, and I wouldn't have gotten to all my questions.
right, right on. Well, thank you very much, Jeff, and I hope to answer the rest of your questions
Yeah,
sometime.
we'll see you soon. Best of luck with the record and the tour. Thank
Bye
you.
bye.